Hello and welcome, everybody, to episode 186 of Two Nerds in a Pod, the nerdiest video game podcast in the galaxy. I am your host, Maction, and I am joined by my fellow host, connoisseur of comedy, funny man, and just all-around good guy, good dad, good everything, Mr. Nice Guy 425. And special shout-out to our returning sponsor, Game Insider Magazine. Mr. Nice Guy, how the heck are you, sir?
Man, I'm good, man.
Yeah, it's, I almost forgot. It's April 27th, 2021.
It is. Yeah, that's right. Which is a great day to do a podcast, right?
Agreed.
Yeah, no, things are good, man. As usual, I spent the weekend in Milwaukee, in the Milwaukee area, looking for houses for this move. And we're getting closer. It's a hot market to buy, right? Things are crazy in these streets, but we're good, man. We're not in too big a rush. We're gonna make it happen. And relaxed a little bit yesterday. Played outside with the fam. Did a little bit of gaming. Watched some good stuff on TV, and got a little workout in, man. Trying to lose the COVID-19, as they say, right? Those 19 pounds that you gain when you're in a global pandemic. I'm trying to burn them back off, man. So life is good. What's new with you?
Oh, man. I simultaneously feel like absolutely nothing. But yet almost every time after we record, I come up with, like, something. You know what I mean?
Right,
And I'm
something
just
that
like,
you would have said on the pod. Right?
yeah. So, and I find myself again in that situation. So I'll just reach for the nearest thing that occurs to me. And that, as you know, Mr. Nice Guy, I've got a 3D printer, and every so often I print some cool things on it. Well, there have been talks of whether legit or not legit about COVID passports and things like that. And I figured I would 3D print myself the only passport you're ever going to need. That's right, a multipass. So I've 3D printed a multipass, like from The Fifth Element. And into it goes my COVID vaccination card, so I can carry around, nice and tongue-in-cheek, my multipass. So,
That's dope, man.
Thanks.
What does it get you access to? Crowded restaurants and beach parties, spring break events, that type of stuff?
Absolutely nothing, because as far as I'm aware, I'm not traveling to the European Union, or I'm not traveling abroad where I think they would ask for that information. But you know me. When I hear people say ridiculous things, I don't know, maybe not ridiculous. It's one of those where it's like, I've only ever heard people complain about it. I've not actually heard any people propose it, which leads me to think that it's just, people complaining to complain.
That happens in a world.
Yeah, surprisingly. So it's mostly just to be kind of tongue-in-cheek when somebody says something about, about needing a COVID passport. I'll just be like, multipass. And,
nice. There you go.
And like that. So that's it.
Nice. Well, Mac, on that note, this is 186, boy. Episode 186. I say we do what we do best, and we hop right into that gaming news, man. What do you think about that?
Let's do it. What exciting things have we heard this week?
Mac, they're honestly, usually I'm like, we got a lot of cool stuff this week. And this week we do not. I wasn't really amused or excited about a lot of the stuff that came up this week, but there's some notable things that we'll discuss. So let's start with this first news story on GameInformer.com by Liana Rupert. Now, Mac, I didn't watch the Oscars. Did you? That's not really my watching movies I love. And then if I enjoy a movie, I don't need it to be validated by the Academy, right? If I like something, I don't need to know who won Best Actor. I don't know. That's just me. This article says Respawn Entertainment is out here making history during the annual Academy Awards ceremony. The Electronic Arts Studio just took home an Oscar during the 93rd edition of the show, making it the first gaming company to boast a win. Respawn Entertainment and Oculus Studios have won an Oscar for Best Documentary Short during this year's Academy Awards ceremony for a documentary called Colette from Medal of Honor Above and Beyond. So, Mac, bottom line, are games legit now? What does it take for people to stop saying that games aren't art, stop saying that we're nerds who live in our parents' basements, Like, what does it take? Because we have esports, we got athletes buying esports teams, we got esports being taught in schools, we got people streaming professionally, making millions of dollars, and now we got an Oscar.
True, and
Are we there?
it's not just some far away like, oh, we heard about it in the news. There is a single school that has an esports team or whatever. We have a friend of the show who shows up
Yeah,
fairly regularly who happens to be the one in charge of esports league for their high school, if I recall properly. So I mean, it's not just something that we hear about theoretically. It's definitely something we've got some pretty close, interaction with.
yeah, and
Um,
it's legit happening. Yeah,
but to answer your question, Brown v. Board Emergence Association, video games are art, so legally taken care of. But yeah, for other people to catch up, and I feel a little bit weird saying for the public to catch up to the legal system, for public opinion to catch up to the Supreme Court. It looks like we're still very much working on that.
that's exactly right. Well, cool. No, that's all I wanted to share about that. It's kind of dope that games get recognized because ultimately games are telling stories, right? Just like movies, just like TV shows, just like books, and it's cool to see. So let's move on to our next news story. Mac, when's the last time you played Pokemon Go? Have you played right lately, or it's been a while? I haven't played it in forever.
It has been a while. I was super excited for Pokemon Go when it first came out, and then because I was very poor and working off of a very old phone, it just would not work, and Pokemon Go basically passed me by. So it's been since the initial launch of Pokemon Go since I've played it.
I'm trying to remember when it even came out. Like I haven't played it in a long, long time. And when I did, it was literally just mostly me in the house with my kids, um, just like catching ones that would appear in the house. So, and a couple people in the chat saying they've played a little. Well, regardless, here is a news story about Pokemon Go from Nathan Grayson on Kotaku.com. Where there's a will to cheat, there's a will to use cheats to functionally climb a real life mountain in the wilderness of Montana. That's what it is. Recently, Pokemon Go player Boots Made for Walking tale of triumph quickly gave way to a cautionary tale. Yesterday on Reddit, they posted a screenshot of a gym they'd held for 3.5 years, 1,332 days to be precise. Quote, Ninetales is still going strong, they wrote, adding that they censored the exact location of the gym for their protection. Other players warned that spoofers, people who cheat to spoof their in-game locations, would feast on the Poke Pie Boots for Walking left in their Poke windowsill. And that's exactly what ended up happening. Not long after the basking in glory, they amended their post to deliver some bad news. A spoofer took it down, they wrote. Didn't even have a name. They figured it out from the pic. Mac, I've never lost anything in-game. Like in-game currency, in-game stuff.
You've never lost a 3-on-3 in NBA 2K something or other?
I've never, let me rephrase that. I've never lost anything hacking wise, right? Like,
Oh,
I've
you don't
never
think that
lost,
those people are hacking and beating
but I
you
didn't
on the
lose. I
court?
didn't lose. I didn't lose any rewards that I had earned, or
Well,
like lose
fair,
a
but I'm
Pokemon gym that I'd held for 3 years. Like
well,
that's crazy.
but is there any reward that you get? And this is where I have to put out my ignorance here. Is there any reward that you get for holding a Pokemon gym for a prolonged period of time?
I don't. I think it was just a thing of pride for this guy.
Sure.
Um,
And pride goeth before the fall, and it's a shame it happened at the hands of cheaters instead of somebody willing to, I don't know, hike to the
battle.
top of Mount Rainier or whatever.
Yeah, no, that's exactly it. And so, like, and it says, had you heard about this story already? By the way,
No, this is news to
you
me.
had. Okay, got it. So I don't know, man. Like, I feel like games, like in-game spots, in-game gear, it's becoming more legitimate. And I was reading this week about a cryptocurrency called Engine. It's a crypto that's being used. This is totally off topic, but it's a crypto that's basically being used to purchase in-game items. And it's a legit crypto. Like I can't even verbalize it, but I read a ton about it. Point being, if you have an in-game item, you could trade it for engine coin. And some of these new games that are coming out are actually using Engine Coin as a currency that you can use to exchange things in game. So, point being, if you get a really rare piece of item in a game, it actually holds some value. Like it's not just a digital thing. It actually holds value. And so it's sad to see someone lose a spot in Pokemon Go. I'm being way too wordy right now to a hacker because these things actually are of value to people.
Man, on the subject of being too wordy, you will never have me, I mean, I'm in a glass house. I'm not about to start throwing stones at you. And yeah, but I hear what you're saying, and I feel like you've given me some great content here for a future legalese, which is the various legal disputes around value of digital things. I know I've touched on it a little bit, but maybe I ought to come back and do a nice deep dive on where digital property is regarded with respect to with in comparison to physical property, real property, as it's called.
Yeah, and like I said, the news this week was not that interesting to me. Like these stories are a stretch. Like this is not stuff I'd usually share. We'll wrap up with this.
Oh.
GameSpot.com by Eddie Makic. Microsoft reported earnings on Tuesday, revealing that Xbox is doing exceptionally well right now from a business perspective, following the launch of Xbox Series X and S, as well as the completion of its acquisition of ZeniMax. Gaming revenue was $3.35 billion for the quarter, ending in March 31st, which was up a whopping 50% year over year. Mac, I won't get too much into the numbers, but I remember we had a conversation several episodes ago. Like, I feel like it was before the new consoles even launched about Microsoft's strategy
Mm-hmm.
and about how they were using Game Pass to get people to purchase the hardware. All I will say is that it seems like it's working. Like their revenue is up 232% for hardware. Revenue for gaming is up 50%.
But is that in comparison to like the last launch year, or just like to the last year?
No, it's year over year, which is a fair point
Mm.
because obviously new consoles came out, right?
Yeah.
So there. Go ahead.
Oh, so I was just going to say maybe 200% bump in hardware sales revenue is a little bit of financial sleight of hand, to kind of be like, oh look, we're up, we're doing so great. I mean, I'm sure more money is more money, but maybe it's not the good indicator in this instance of the health of the Xbox, the new Xbox console.
Yeah, it's true because you're effectively comparing what like year 7 of a console generation to year 1 of a new console generation, where the momentum is closer to the beginning in terms of sales. So comparing the beginning to the end is kind of misleading. Regardless, I think that Xbox, Sony, and Nintendo are all legit, and I want to see them all succeed. I feel like competition results in better games
Mm-hmm.
and better experiences for all of us. Hyped for Microsoft to finally release that new Halo, and I'd come up with some other stuff with Bethesda that will make us want to purchase the Xbox. So that's what I had for news this week.
All right. Well, if news this week has been just a little bit lackluster, Mr. Nice Guy, I don't think we're going to disappoint today with video game history.
Nice. Let's hear it.
Oh, what a week. What a week. Okay. I'm going to start with the ones that I feel less interested in, but that I still think are worth noting. In 2003, on the Game Boy Advance, there was a Splinter Cell game.
Oh, yes.
Tom Clancy's Splinter Cell.
Yes, the first one.
I've never played it on Game Boy Advance. I suspect it's probably not good on Game Boy Advance. But I thought I would mention it in the off chance that Mr. Nice Guy, as a dedicated, you're shaking your head. No, that's
No. The one mobile, or rather handheld Splinter Cell that I played was Splinter Cell Essentials on PlayStation Portable, and even that was terrible. Like it's not meant to be mobile.
Well, if there's anybody here with us live that has experience with the 2003 Game Boy Advance Splinter Cell, let us know. Let us know, because I feel like we should not immediately write it off, even if that's probably the safe answer in this case. In 1999, though, an uncontroversial pick here, the release on Nintendo 64 of Super Smash Brothers.
Yes, yes.
Mr. Nice Guy, I know every time we come around to the release of Super Smash Brothers, I mention, of course, the near, I believe it was the near clean sweep that you and your brother did at a PAX on Super Smash.
Yeah, I won't share the whole story again, but suffice it to say, my brother is a killer with the Ice Climbers, or at least he used to be. And we had some epic moments at the very first PAX ever in Bellevue, Washington, Maidenbauer Center. He put in some work, like to the point that if it had been live streamed, he would still be a legend to this day. It was pretty dope.
Man, that's fantastic. So credit where credit is due. Mr. Nice Brother 425 deserves some credit, or what's his? I always forget his Twitch handle.
He goes by Kid Nicky on Twitch.
Kid Nicky deserves some credit for dominating at the first ever PAX at Super Smash. So credit where credit is due. Released for the original Xbox in 2004, Psychonauts. A fantastic game. If you haven't played it before, I encourage you to play it. A fantastic voice talent, really trippy and fun gameplay. Well worth your time. It's held up very well over the years, and I'm pretty sure you can buy a remaster on PC, as well as some of the newer gen. It's probably PS3 and and the like. That seems about right for the remake, but well worth it if you haven't. 2008 Mario Kart Wii. Another excellent title. And unfortunately one that I missed out on, but I think it's hard to go wrong with a Mario Kart game.
They're all good. I don't think there's ever been one that was just like bad. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm sure there have been some that are just kind of meh.
Double Dash was not my favorite.
What?
Yeah, Double Dash was not my favorite one.
Dare you?
The GameCube, dude. N64 and Super Nintendo Mario Karts, those were way better. Way better.
Oh. We might have
objectively better.
Okay, we're just going to have to leave that for now. Maybe we come back to this some other time. I feel like I feel like I don't even know you sometimes. Okay, but perhaps more importantly, April 27th, 2010. There's a release of a game called Super Mario Brothers Crossover. Now, a few episodes back, I talked about a game called Mushroom Kingdom.
Yes.
And that was definitely notable, definitely interesting. Super Mario Brothers Crossover got started in 2010. So it, got started after Mushroom Kingdom. Mushroom Kingdom Fusion, rather. But arguably, I feel like Super Mario Brothers Crossover is the superior game. It does many of the same things, except instead of trying to make a whole new game with new levels and new everything, it just plonks the characters from those games, like Mega Man, like Sophia 3 from Blaster Master, like Simon Belmont from Castlevania, plonks them right into the original Super Mario Brothers. There were, plans on making follow-ups and making better stuff later that kind of had a Kickstarter, raised some money, fizzled out, ran into troubles, all that sort of thing. And as I understand, is sort of in limbo. But I loved Super Mario Brothers Crossover. Spent a lot of time playing that game, trying to get good at it, and got reasonably good. I even went so far as to make a fan page for Super Mario Brothers Crossover. That's how excited about it I was back in the day. So that game holds a special place in my heart. And if you still have Flash, because it's a Flash game, go ahead, give it a shot. Although it's kind of unlikely, what with Flash being now officially dead, instead of just kind of on life support. So unfortunately, unless somebody has a copy of Super Mario Brothers Crossover that's been converted into whatever the going thing is, I guess HTML or what have you, it might be a dead game, which is always a shame, but history nonetheless. And one other thing, Mr. Nice Guy, I know video game history has gone on for a little while here, but I feel like we've got room and time. I wanted to mention that it would have been yesterday, in the early 1980s, that
Okay.
a company that you might have heard about, Quaker Oats, familiar?
Yeah, I've heard of
Yeah,
them.
yeah,
They
you've
make
heard
some
of
pretty
them.
good breakfast
Yeah,
products.
they
Yeah.
make breakfast. They've been around for a while. That they purchased a video game company called US Games. Probably haven't heard of that,
I have not.
because this happened to be part of the great serial video game wars of the early 1980s.
This is a thing, really.
Yeah.
Interesting.
It's a thing. So Quaker on the one hand and General Mills on the other hand. Now General
Oh,
Mills,
snap.
they had Parker Bradley, right? Which of course you know for Clue, Monopoly, things like that.
Yeah. Board games.
Yeah, but they also had a video game division, especially in the early 80s. And so Quaker, in an attempt to try and take, to not be left behind, they had Fisher Price. They bought Fisher Price. I think they sold it in the 90s, and they also picked up US Games, because obviously if a competitor like General Mills is getting into, children's toys and video games, then they've got to be into it too. So, interestingly, it was US Games in 1983 that would release Entombed, a video game that we talked about for Video Game History in episode 137, which is a wild ride. So be sure to go back and check out 137, because Entombed was crazy. But this went on. They were producing video games. I believe US Games produced something on the neighborhood of maybe 13 or 14 games, primarily for the Atari 2600. Whereas General Mills, well, at least Parker Bradley, continued producing video games for quite some time. Sadly, US Games stopped producing video games and closed its doors in 1983. Those history buffs, especially game history buffs among you, will probably know that 1983 was a very big year in video games because of... I'll give you a chance to steal, Mr. Nice Guy, if you want to steal for double the points.
I'm good with this, man. I don't know this one.
The 1983 video game crash. Sadly, US Games would be a victim of the crash. Unfortunately, they were unable to weather the storm. Quaker did not maintain the company, and I believe sold it off at the bottom of the crash. And yeah, we said goodbye in 1983 to US Games, and in 1983, that was the end of the video game wars. A hotly contested bit, the serial video game wars, hotly contested for the first few years of the 1980s, but unfortunately, a casualty. Who knows what amazing games we would have received if the great serial video game wars had continued through the rest of the 80s. Would we have got a Chex Quest 2? Perhaps? A Chex Quest 3? What about a Super Mario Oats?
Absolutely not.
Oh, I think...
That just sounds blasphemous.
Mr. Nice Guy, when you have a sliding device and we can slide into alternate realities where the video game crash never happened and the great serial video game wars of the 1980s continued into the 90s, I think we will find an entirely different landscape of video games. And until you come to me with a sliding device, I'm going to continue to believe that. As wild as it is. But,
man. I'm not going to argue with you about that.
that's speculative history. And what I said before was just video game history.
On that note, Super Mario, you're unbelievable. You're unbelievable.
I'm just saying, the tie-in, it's right there. I can't imagine how they wouldn't go for something like that.
Well, on that note, I say we move on to our next thing, which is the topic of the week where we discuss something relevant in gaming and give our opinions on it. Let's talk about GameStop being saved. Who in the chat is excited that GameStop was saved?
I'm excited.
And I'll explain what I mean by that. This is on GameSpot.com, written by Eddie Macick. Video game retailer GameSpot has completed its plan to sell 3.5 million shares to generate funds to help accelerate its transformation to become a successful company. GameSpot has now sold those shares, and the market value of them brought in about $551 million. Now, Mac, just to kind of summarize this, we're all familiar with what was going on Reddit with GameStop stock, right?
But just in case I wasn't.
Yeah, just in case someone wasn't, GameStop stock got hyped up on Reddit, on the Wall Street Bets subreddit. You know, they said, let me back up. There's a thing called short selling, where companies effectively bet against the stock, right? They say, we think this stock is going to dip. We're going to sell shares of it that we don't actually own in hopes that it will go down in price. We can rebuy the shares and pay back our debt. That's short selling. There was a high percentage of GameStop shares that were short sold. People realized this, and so they bought up all the shares, or attempted to, so that would make the price go up, so that the short sellers would have to buy them back. And so gamers, internet nerds, and people on Reddit could profit. Well, this helped GameStop because the price rose. They were able to sell some of their shares, and it effectively saved their business. Mac, I want to hear positive GameStop stories that you may have from your childhood or from your adulthood. I know you don't shop there a lot now because you're a digital guy, but I also want to know your thoughts on this. Like, gamers effectively, as a residual effect of this, helped save something that was a staple in gaming. And how do you feel about that through the power of the internet?
Oh, man. So for starters, good memories of GameStop. I'll have to contemplate for a second.
Is that an
hour later. I can't think of much in the way of really positive experiences. I know that that Mrs. the Mac enjoyed visiting a business that was physically adjacent to GameStop. And so, at least where we lived. And so I would regularly go in there to take a look around while I was, unpreoccupied. And I feel like I feel like I don't really have any positive experiences or positive stories, but I do have at least one, and that was just before moving to where I am now in rural western Nebraska. I was living in Omaha, and I applied for a job managing. I wanted to manage a branch of GameStop, and didn't hear back. Anyway, heard back the day that I moved out here, and they're like, "Hey, we want to bring you in for an interview." And keep in mind, this was like a month, 2 months after the thing, and I was like, I'm sorry, I'm on the other side of the state now. So I mean, I guess I do feel
That's
a
not
little
a positive
positively.
memory, Mac. That's a passive aggressive.
Well, they called me back
at their organization.
They called me back, and I mean, not everybody calls you back.
Mac is being sarcastic right now. Mac is insulting GameStop passive aggressively, which we do it blatantly on a regular basis. I said, let's take one day. Just one day, and say positive things about GameStop. And Max said, I got something positive to say about GameStop. One time I applied for a job, and then 3 months later, they offered me the job. That's not positive. That's passive aggressive.
Okay. Positive thing is that GameStop has always been there for me when I needed to hang on, when I needed to kill a little bit of time and check out what the new games were going to be.
You're such a liar.
No, I mean, like I said, Mrs. the Mac would be at the store next door, so I'd be a little bit bored. I'd go in and I would become aware of the video games that were coming out, and that is worthwhile to me as a guy who gets in front of a
Doesn't have access
microphone
to the
every
internet.
week and you know, maybe doesn't care that much about brand new releases, but has the opportunity to be, you know, aware of the things upcoming.
Thank you, Mets girl, for saying something positive in the chat about GameStop. Takes her kids there to buy used games. I have one positive story.
When they have games.
When they have games. I remember going there with a bunch of my crappy old games and trading them in and getting GoldenEye 64 as a kid. And like I was so hyped. Like me and my brother were so hyped. And we had so many memories of that game. Like I don't know anyone who had an N64 that doesn't have fond memories of GoldenEye 60 and just playing that with your buddies. So picking that game up and just playing it and having a good time, positive memory of GameStop.
You know, Mr. Nice Guy, maybe that's part of the problem, is that when I was growing up, there was no GameStop nearby. It was only, I feel like, after GameStop was kind of on the decline and had become a little bit of a joke to some people, us included, that it was on my radar.
Well, like now, yeah, and now I'm at the point where I feel like I realize the value of games. And to me, there's no reason to ever trade them in. That's just kind of how I am. Like if you buy a game, you should just keep it because you never know when you may want to play it again, right? But as a kid, I was like I can actually take games that I'm not playing and trade them in, and I can get a game that I actually want. And to me, at the time, that was a great thing. So that's my positive. Now, as far as go ahead.
No.
As far as them being saved by the residual effects of the internet warriors on the subreddit Wall Street Bets, I think it's great. Like it goes to show the power of community, right? And it goes to show that, you know, if you can organize, you really can accomplish anything. You know, and I think it's so cool to see. I won't get too off topic. I'll just leave it at that.
No, I agree. I'm the type of person who wants to see more options, even if I don't use them. And more options of places to buy games is worthwhile to me. Also, I do gain a little bit of schadenfreude because, you know, people who were short selling the stock wound up getting stuck with a bill, and all it took was a bunch of us keyboard warriors. Woo-hoo! So I feel a certain positiveness about that as well.
Yeah, it was pretty cool to see. To see. Well, that has been our topic of the week.
All right. Well, now we turn to a crowdfunding project that's trying to get off of the ground. This is Kick or Kickstart. I will put a link in the chat. You guys can all take a look with us live. Mr. Nice Guy and I, we will chat about this, and we will say whether or not we think it should be kicked out of here or whether it should be kickstarted. We encourage you to take a look and tell us what you think as well. This is the NES Omnibus Volume 2. This covers titles released for the NES between the letters M and Z. Of course, obviously, Volume 1 was A through L and the like. An in-depth treatment in a hardcover style coffee book of the games of the NES. Now, if you, for example, want to get, you know, a copy of the book, this, of course, isn't so much a thing to get like a PDF or anything. This is to get the book, the hardcover book. Yep. You're looking at $50 to get a hardcover book of it. There's numbered editions, limited editions, or whatever for more money if you want, so on. I think I know where Mr. Nice Guy's coming down on this already. If you want both Volume 1 and Volume 2, $100, $50 each.
Of course.
Could you do that as Raul Julia as M. Bison from the Street Fighter movie?
Wait, what? No, I can't.
You can't. Okay, okay. I just thought maybe you had any. Anyway, this has already been funded. They were looking for $8,000 for the initial run, minimum run of the hardcover books. They're coming up on 15,000 at the moment, so nearly double. And they're looking at delivery in let's see, November of this year, so a little ways out. Mr. Nice Guy, I can tell that you have. I can tell that you have some feelings.
I mean, it just comes down to the price. Like $50, really? Like, to put things in perspective, we've talked last week about the show Invincible, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's based on a comic book by Robert Kirkman, who also created and writes The Walking Dead, and you can get the whole compendium, or at least you could a couple weeks ago, 1,000+ pages of comic book goodness for $30 to $40 on Amazon.
Mm-hmm.
The whole first compendium. This is a little thin book that costs $50, and I don't care that it's Kickstarter. Like,
it is a hardcover book.
That's fine, but does the hardcover make it worth $50? When ultimately there's other stuff that you could get so much more bang for your buck. I don't know. I don't think it does, especially since all this info is on the internet. Now, yeah, you could say the same thing. You could probably, find a way to read Invincible or The Walking Dead or whatever on the internet for free. But I just don't see this being worth that price. It's going to be $9.99 on Amazon in a few years, in a few months.
Really? $9.99?
Yes.
Well, I think Metzgirl brings up a very good point that Dungeons and Dragons books, they're about yay big. They're hardcover. They're about $50 a piece.
Is that because it's a branded thing though? And because there's a certain reputation?
Well, I mean, there is, of course, some component of it that goes into that. Yeah, no, I don't. Right. But it is one of those things where it's like, they have publishers. I mean, they've got printers on speed dial, I'm sure. Speed dial is sure a thing, right? It's still a thing, right? It's not like Rolodex that we don't use anymore, right?
Yeah, people use speed dial.
Okay, good. So it's like a speed dial. You got it on speed dial, and that's still a thing. And I'm, how do you do, fellow kids? And in spite of having probably publishers and printers on speed dial, that's sort of what the going rate is, I feel like, because they certainly have enough volume that they could probably sell for much lower. I don't know. I feel like $50, that's a bit more than I want to pay, even for a thing. I feel like 40 is where I would like to see a hardcover book.
Well, and here's the thing, Mac. This whole thing is redundant unless you own both of them.
I mean, I suppose so. I think some of my favorite games are in
not the right word.
Oh, well, okay, look. Best games, Mega Man, Legend of Zelda. I mean, Strider's okay, and it's in there. Super Mario Bros. I feel like the weightiness of the NES library is shifted toward Volume 2 here. That's just my take.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. Super Mario Brothers, right? Legend of Zelda.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot, but I would bet that if you looked at the first volume, there'd be some you wanted, and I just feel like it just makes sense to have them both. I don't know. Anyway, is it time to vote or?
Yeah, it's time to vote. Go ahead and let us know whether you think Kickstart or Kick. I'm very much leaning toward the Kickstart side of this. I'm honestly kind of debating about picking this one up. As both Crux Capacitor and Metzgirl point out, $50 is pretty standard for a hardcover book. So I don't know. I mean, I sincerely hope, and this is already going to print. It's already been funded, so it's not like we're going to be the death nail in this. But, I hope that we can find it, for cheap. at some point in time. But as I understand it, this isn't going to be a continuous imprint, so it's likely to retain its value. Maybe ? I don't know. Maybe that's how it works. Economics is hard. So, Mr. Nice Guy, I say kickstart.
I mean, I say kick. Like, this is not. You can find all the information that you want in this book on Wikipedia. You just can't find it packaged this way.
Mm.
If it's worth it to you to have it packaged this way, more power to you. To me, it's not.
All right.
I say kick it to the curb.
And let us know what you think so far. Looks like we've got a kick from Crux Capacitor. Too much content that I wouldn't read and not enough promise. For Kane, though, kick start. I've dropped a lot more for hardcover, small-scale printed books. So yeah, keep letting us know what you think. We're tabulating the results from here.
Soft kick from Spennis. We see you, buddy. We see your comment, homie. Good to see you, brother.
Yeah, sorry about that. Missed you, Spennis.
Cool. Well, let's keep things moving to a segment we like to call Nerd Flex.
Woohoo! Now, I do want to throw out here real quick that, of course, every fourth Nerd Flex, we do a sound test, giving you the opportunity to identify a mystery sound. You let us know on Twitter what it is. Get yourself a shiny 2 Nerds in a Pod resin pen. Yeah, that's what we'll call it. Of the ones, because we started doing that in episode 131, since then, only 4 of those have been successfully identified. So there are a lot of sound tests that are still up to be claimed. So go for it.
Awesome. So if anyone here live wants to ask us a trivia question, get it in the chat. Preferably gaming related. Actually, that's required, but preferably multiple choice. And we will do our best to answer. This is where you, the viewer, try to stump the host. Sometimes you don't. We will start with a question from our nerd, or what's it called?
Our
test
Nerd Bank.
Our Nerd Bank. Can you tell I'm tired?
A little bit, but you've been jet setting, going all over the place.
A lot, Life is good, but I've been hustling. We actually got a question in the chat. Oh boy, this is a good question.
Oh, and this is all solidly aimed at you, Mr. Nice Guy.
I know, and I'm in trouble. Oh boy, you're making me want to go back and replay this game, Metscroll, because it's so good. How many grubs are in Hollow Knight? This question comes from Jonah, friend of the show. Shout out to Jonah. A, 64, B, 46, C, 52, D, 69.
Nice.
Well, I'm going to eliminate D.
Mm-hmm. So,
and the thing that's crazy is 46 and 52 are so close together.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it's going to be either the lowest number or the highest number. Right? And I feel like 64 is too high.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to go with B, 46. Final answer. My favorite Metroidvania of all time is Hollow Knight. And I'm excited for the second one to come out.
Did you 100% Hollow Knight?
No. Well, actually, I think there's like 107% or something like that, which doesn't make sense.
Okay.
But I'm pretty sure I got 100%, but didn't complete everything, if that makes sense. Because 100% is not full completion.
Mm-hmm. So yeah. Anyway, I'm.
He is correct. Let's go.
Well done, Mr. Nice Guy.
Go. Let's freaking go. I'm a Hollow Knight expert.
Excellent. Now, this next one comes from Spennis the Menace. In Pokemon Red and Blue, bless you, sir. What 3 Pokemon are selected for the Champions team, with 2 of them being based on the starter that you chose? Oh, man. It's a good question.
It is a good question.
The Champions team. The Champions team. Goodness sakes. Oh, right, because the champion is your rival, right? Yeah, the champion is your rival in Pokemon Red and Blue. You get there, and your rival's already beaten the final four. And he's your. Yep, okay, there we go. So, what three Pokemon are selected for the champions team, with two of them being based on the starter you chose? Well, at least his starter is directly based on the starter that you chose. Because obviously you have to, depending upon what you chose, they've got the other starter. Or one of the other starters. So, gosh, what's the other one? Mr. Nice Guy, any ideas?
What are the starters in Pokemon?
Oh, no. So, like in Pokemon Red and Blue, right? You pick a starter, and your
Yeah.
rival picks a different starter.
Yeah, of course.
And so, when you fight him as the last one at the end, right?
Yeah, this
Then
is tough.
there's two Pokemon that are what three Pokemon are selected for the champions team, with two of them being based on the starter that you chose? At least one of them is, of course, the other starter, right?
Yeah, the one that has like a power opposite yours, right?
Yeah,
Or an
yeah.
ability type opposite yours.
Yeah,
right?
so that's got to be one of the two that are chose
So,
after
like,
the
if you
starter
chose
that you chose.
Charmander, then he would have
Squirtle.
Squirtle.
Yeah, exactly. So, like, whatever the other starter is, and I feel like, man.
Is it Mewtwo? No, it's not Mewtwo.
Oh no, definitely not Mewtwo. I can't think of another one, so I'm just going to say, I don't know, whatever it'll pick a different either flying or ground type based on what starter you choose. I know I am just falling down on the job with this question, but I can't come up with anything better than that.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with what Max said. I don't know.
So, and I'm not even, and based on what people are saying here live in the chat, I'm not entirely sure that I even grasped the question properly, and that's on me. But that's what we're sticking with. So let us know how wrong we are, and
while we're waiting for that answer, let's get to this third question.
Okay.
Another number question from Crux Capacitor in the chat. How many? I think he meant to say stars. How many stars are collectible in Super Mario 64 without pressing the A button? Why don't you read Spennis's answer real quick, Mac? And then
Okay, so Spennis says the starter was obvious, but the three that I'm speaking of are the two other types based on the two types of fire, water, grass that are not the starter. And so, yeah, I can't, I can get the obvious one, not getting the other. So Spennis, let us know what the whole of it is.
So how many stars are collectible in Super Mario 64 without pressing the A button? 55, 120, 82, or 96? And that's a tough one. How many can you get without jumping, basically?
Yeah. So I'm thinking about it. And if I had to guess, I would say all 120 I don't think is doable without jumping. But I think a lot of them are. So I'm inclined toward either C or D, those ones in the middle. And C82 just seems more like in line with what I would expect from those crazy speedrunners and those challenge runners. Yeah. So I'm feeling C.
Cool.
Are you going with me?
And I'm going with you, dude. Let's do it. And Spennis' answer's in the chat.
All
so
right.
C final answer.
Mm-hmm. And so Spennis the Menace says it is in fact Gyarados, Arcanine, and Executor, which Executor is all about those wills.
Puns.
So congrats, Jonah got that one right. We did not. And wrong again. It was nice. I narrowed it down to the correct 2, but it is in fact 896, including A presses required to get into the stages. Okay. Well, Oh well, got that one wrong, but you know what? We got 1 out of 3 right, Mr. Nice Guy, and that's nothing to sneeze at. I feel like we've demonstrated some of our nerdiness there.
No, we did great tonight. Thanks for the questions, everybody. That
Yeah.
has been Nerdflex.
All right. Now we move on to a little bit of legalese.
Legalese.
All right. And so I'm going to take us back a little while. Back in 2016, James Varga, also known as Phantom Lord, got booted from Twitch. Varga had been involved in one way or another in the whole CSGO skin gambling stuff of the time. You might remember that if you were around then. And in 2018, Varga brought a lawsuit against Twitch for banning him, and this is kind of why I said he was involved in one way or another in the whole CSGO skin gambling thing. It was alleged later on by Twitch in the early part of the back and forth in 2018 that Varga was essentially scamming fellow Twitchers because he was connected to the behind-the-scenes stuff at the CSGO gambling site that he was pushing, and there was unethical stuff, and that was a violation of his contract, and da-da-da-da-da, and on and on. Now, I didn't dig into that part of the suit, that part of the claim, but I wanted to give you all kind of the highlights of the conclusion of it because we know now the results of the lawsuit. It's been, he got booted in 2016. He started the lawsuit in 2018, and just barely, I think it was just yesterday, we found out the results. So, in the suit, Varga sued based on 5 things: breach of contract, breach of good faith. It's phrased a little bit differently, but I'm changing the phrasing here. Intentional misrepresentation, negligent misrepresentation, and unfair business practices. Now, if you guys have listened to Legalese before, you know that unfair business practice is kind of a catch-all thing that you throw there on the end to kind of catch any sort of edge cases. It's sort of just best case scenario. You put it there just to be thorough. And so by the end, the unfair business practices wasn't included as part of it. But breach of contract, the jury said yes. Breach of good faith, the jury said yes. Intentional misrepresentation, yes-ish. And negligent representation, definitely. And I do want to drill just a little bit farther down. I know this is super dry, but I was able to get my hands on actually like the jury instruction on this case, where the jury had their things, where it's just like, okay, on count 1, breach of contract. And it asked multiple questions for them to all answer yay or nay. And just to give you a thing, like, for example, in intentional misrepresentation, right? The questions were, did they, Twitch, did they misrepresent facts? Were the facts false? Did they intend for him, Varga, to rely on the info? And they're like, well, yes, it's false. Yes, they misrepresented, but no, they didn't intend for Varga to rely on it. So intentional misrepresentation, negligent misrepresentation, though, was like, did they have reason to believe, they, Twitch, the false stuff? Did Varga rely on the false stuff? Was the false stuff a substantial factor in the harm that Varga suffered? In which case they're like, no, they had no reason to believe the false stuff that they said. Did Varga rely on the false stuff? Yes. Was the false stuff a substantial factor in his eventual harm? Him getting booted off the platform? Yes. Because they were like, Twitch did not adequately communicate. They breached their contract. They didn't give him a chance to fix what they said was a problem, and that's important. Anyway, all of that said, Varga gets about $20,000 from all of this. And probably most importantly, Twitch had a rider in their contracts, at least the ones that they were pushing out in 2015, right? 2016. Well, actually, I think he signed his as far back as like 2012. That had a rider in their contracts that said damages would be capped at $50,000. And in this case, at least, the judge ruled that caps like that were unconscionable, violate public policy and are unreasonable. This was something that he said back in September of 2019. But it might be interesting to see what kinds of changes this case might impose on future Twitch contracts or changes to current contracts with partners on Twitch. So yeah, an interesting little bit. I mean, obviously I didn't drill into how much, whether or not Varga was actually doing any scamming or, or anything like that around CSGO skins, because at the end of it, what we were really drilling down on this was, did Twitch have an obligation before they kicked him to do certain things, make certain representations? And yeah, they did not do what they were supposed to do. And that's why at the end of this, Varga winds up with 20,000, regardless of whatever breach he may have done. And that was one of the things, one of the yay nays in the breach of contract was, did Varga breach his contract? And the jury was just like, yes. But next question, does Varga's breach of contract let Twitch off the hook for their breach of contract? And the answer was no. At least the jury did not feel compelled, after hearing all of the arguments, that Twitch got a pass for Varga breaking his side of the things. So yeah, like I said, definitely interesting. I've never before, and maybe I just haven't looked hard enough, but I've never before actually seen the checklist down the roll of, hey, these are the questions. Is it this? Yay, nay, and such, which was certainly kind of an exciting little trip for me, kid in the candy store. Anyway, I know this is interesting to no one but me, but I appreciate
all of us. Stop saying that.
I appreciate you all listening, or at least pretending to listen attentively. That's been some legalese and future deep dives about digital property in the future. Promise.
Nice. Everyone say, Mac, that was interesting in the chat, so that he can understand that we appreciate his due diligence in this segment.
Chat, do not bow to peer pressure.
Ladies and gentlemen, this has been episode 186 of Two Nerds in a Pod. Thank you so much for tuning in. Before we go, we got one last segment called
What We've Been Watching and What We've Been Playing,
where we do just that. We talk about the cool, nerdy stuff we've been into across all platforms. And if you're here live, you have a job to do. Let us know what you have been into. Mac, why don't you lead off? What have you been watching and playing this week?
Well, as you know, the other week I was watching Invincible, and I finished it off. I've also, though, been watching Kim's Convenience, and I'm quite enjoying that. I don't know if you've seen it, have you?
I have not seen it. What is it about?
It's basically, I know it's based off of something else by the same name. I don't know if it's a book or if it's a comic or what have you, but it's basically this Korean family in Canada that has a convenience store, and the dad's kind of ridiculous and hilarious, and it's just great. I
like ridiculous and hilarious.
Yeah, it's a nice slice of life kind of comedy stuff, and it's fun. I don't know if it's still going, but I know that it's got 4 seasons at the moment on Netflix, and it's pretty good. So that's what I've been watching. As for playing, I've been playing Chasm and Strider. I'm participating in the Retrothon that's currently ongoing on Twitch, and Thursday evening I'll be showcasing my games, the 2 things that I air quotes speed run. So that should be fun. What about you?
Chasm and Mega Man 2?
Chasm and Strider. Those 2 games, I speed run them because there's nobody else who does it. So nice. It's easy to be part of the top tier when there's no competition.
That's the way to do it. Falcon, for me, Falcon and the Winter Soldier, been watching that.
Mm-hmm.
Finished it. Oh my gosh, freaking fantastic. Have you finished it, Mac?
I have.
I really liked it, man. I liked the message. I thoroughly enjoyed it. We'll leave it at that. Mighty Ducks Game Changers. Been watching that for some nostalgia. Watching a chubby Gordon Bombay try to coach a little bit. And what else? Been playing Black Ops Cold War now that they got the new maps and the new season out and popping. Playing some Mario Tennis. Oh, and Mac, I've been playing some Pac-Man 99 on my Nintendo Switch. And that game is really fun. I really hope that Nintendo keeps up this trend of coming up with battle royale games that allow you to just solo do what you do and just try to stay alive longer than other people. So I've really been enjoying that.
Very
Mac,
Tetris Attack.
Yeah, Tetris Attack, Mario 99, all that good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Or Super Mario Run, whatever it was called, all that good stuff.
Well,
Mac, what are people into
I'll say
in the
what
chat?
people are playing. Crux Capacitor's playing nothing at the moment. Uncle Ruckus is playing Valheim, Satisfactory, MLB The Show, and Madden 21. Kane is playing Subnautica, Below Zero, Stardew Valley, and Pathfinder. And Metscroll is playing Doomsday Warriors, Kirby Superstar, The Peacekeepers, Stardew, D&D, and GURPS.
Nice. And we got Metscroll watching The Parent Trap, Falcon and the Winter Soldier, Gravity Falls, and Muppet Babies. Nice. I remember Muppet Babies. Used to love it back in the day. Crux Capacitor watched all the Marvel movies and WandaVision. Uncle Ruckus watching Entourage, The Sopranos, The Simpsons, Rick and Morty, and Solar Opposites. Galvatron's watching Mortal Kombat. Yeah, it's on HBO Max. I may have to check that out. Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Oh, goodness. How could you say the ending was terrible? District 9 on 4K, UHD, and Cruel Summer. What else?
And I missed Galvatron's playing Call of Duty, Black Ops Cold War, and Late Shift.
Nice. Mac, why don't you take us home this week?
Certainly. Thanks, everybody, for coming out and being a part of the show. Thanks for sharing with us the nerdy things that you're into so that we know what to go for next. You're the best. It's terrific to have you, and we hope that you'll join us next Tuesday. Same bat time, same bat channel, same bat rhymes. Yep. Keep it nerdy, everybody. Be excellent to each other. Take care.
See ya.